Of the 7,700 hectares of flowers planted in Colombia, more than 1,500 are planted with hydrangeas. The geographical location, the quality of the soil and the dedicated work of flower growers have made Colombia the second largest exporter of flowers in the world after Holland, and flowers occupy the second place among Colombian exports. We are here in a hydrangea crop. The scientific name of hydrangea is also known by that name because it has the particularity that it is one of the few plants that is able to take water through the leaves and the petals of the flower. Well then, the hydrangeas is a perennial crop, as I do not know how the avocado of many years can last 15 to 20 years, and is managed in cycles of about 8 months. When the flowers come out, they are cut and scythed at ground level, they return and come out and the flowers are cut. Inside they are managed in cycles. Normally the crops are established with saran, which is this black poly shade that one sometimes puts on them, so that the sun does not hit them so hard to take care of the petals, because the sun can burn the edges of the petals of the flowers, and they are no longer so beautiful and they no longer sell well. And to protect them also from too much rain and hail as a very extreme climate. But really the hydrangeas are full sun. And one sees them in home gardens in full sun, and they also develop very well. Then it is only sown once initially, more or less at a distance of 40 by 40 centimeters. The beds are made with the plants more or less a year later, and they start to get stronger, and we get a very basic first harvest, and the second year we start to have much more established and stronger plants, and we start to do the programming in a staggered way to have the crop in all sizes. Then you have the advantage that you can decide how much you want to program for each month, if you want to leave more or less quantity at certain times, or if you want to stop the crop for a few months, you do the programming with a side, so that you have the flower that you are waiting to sell. The hydrangea is planted mainly for export. The domestic market is very small, people here do not buy so many flowers, and there is always a little bit of flower for the domestic market, so the bulk of the crop is for export. According to Asocoflores, 95% of the total production of flowers in the country is exported. Currently Colombian flowers reach more than 100 countries around the world, being Colombia the main supplier of flowers to USA, Canada, and Japan. Floriculture in Colombia has been a very important economic line in the development of the country. Here we have been decades, I do not know, 30-40 years, being the first producers of roses in the world, carnation crops very large in Antioquia, chrysanthemum crops. They are very strong, but it has been a trade that has been dominated by businessmen and by people with a lot of money, because it requires a very expensive infrastructure, very expensive greenhouses, and so it has been working for many decades. About 15 years ago hydrangea began to be cultivated in Colombia, especially in eastern Antioquia, and hydrangea has allowed because it has a very basic infrastructure that trains this cluster of ornamental plants, which is so select and so lucrative, very humid peasants. Colombia is the main hydrangea producer worldwide. Almost all the hydrangea that is consumed in all the countries of Europe and the United States comes from here in Colombia. And the cultivation of hydrangea is mostly by small farmers who have small farms. This has allowed the humble farmer to enter into some dynamics that have been new for the farmer. It has been a challenge to have to organize and have a more professional business, to manage inventories, and to manage the fumigations in a more technical way, to have some controls, to do paperwork, invoices, and for entities such as the ICA and ASOCOLFLRES. It has also been a challenge because it has been a way for farmers who are sometimes illiterate, very basic people who do not know about the business movement to enter into their way of operating. So it has been like training on both sides, and it has been very nice, and socially it is like a very inclusive alternative for the countryside, especially here in the eastern part of Antioquia. Hydrangea are new, originating from Japan. They arrived here and have established themselves very well here. There are several varieties of various farms. The most common is the white one, which is the one we have here in this crop. There is also the blue one. There is a strong blue one, which is the choking one. There is also a lighter blue, which is the Bogotana. There is also a softer green, a stronger green. There is fuchsia and there is purple. These are the plants that we have. And each one is a different species, like the bean and the pea, which are like little brothers, but they are different species. The vegetables of each color is a different species. And within each color of flower we work in various sizes. So we commercialize the jumbo flowers, which are flowers of 24 or 25 centimeters in diameter. The premium, which is large, medium, which is 20 centimeters. The select, which is the most normal, which is 18 centimeters, and in buds, which is the crop we have here, which is the mini green, which is the flower in buds. The main flower export production zones include the Bogotá savanna with 66% of the area, the eastern region of Antioquia with 33%, and the coffee region and northern valley with a 1% share. The white hydrangea is the easiest to cultivate, the one that grows faster. The colored ones, the blue and purple ones, are more difficult to cultivate. They are more demanding to handle and take a little longer. They are more expensive. They have a better price, but it is also more difficult to sell them. So it is widely used that the companies that trade with hydrangeas take the white flowers and dye them with airbrush of any blue, yellow, orange color. They look very nice, and they are supplied in a more economical way in a demand of colored flowers. With the cultivation of hydrangea has several cares, several things that are important. The first thing to keep in mind is that the hydrangea is sold by beautiful. Then we are not interested in the nutritional content, we are interested in the physical appearance, that the leaves are healthy, that the flowers are all very nice. That's what you have to take care. Then there are basically three components. There is the stem that must be straight. For that we put some nets to guide the flower in a straight way, and the stem that is straight without any problem. There are also the leaves that must be healthy. There we have to be attentive to fungi, insects that eat the leaves, and the flower itself that must also be healthy without animal bites and have an adequate size for commerce. Hydrangea is normally fertilized monthly. Hydrangea requires a lot of boron. It is good nitrogen, obviously potassium, and a lot of manganese, magnesium and calcium. So manganese is a mineral that is not so common in agricultural crops, but in hydrangea should always include a little manganese in fertilizers, and use a lot of magnesium. Phosphorus is not a very important mineral in hydrangea. The hydrangea has a very strong root. It is a healthy rustic plant, so it tolerates fresh organic matter well. Fertilization is strong, and it is usually very resistant to all soil pests. It is very unusual for it to get nematodes or other pests, so we must be very careful with fertilization. There is also the weeding that is also very important to maintain the aeration condition of the crop and for the plants to grow fast, and there is no competition at the time of fertilization. And there is the phytosanitary management that in hydrangea is very delicate, because we cannot allow any damage, however minimal it may be. There will be that hydrangea is not tolerated. Zero tolerance to pests and diseases is zero, because you do not have an average option. If our flower is perfect, it is useless. It is like nothing at all. So we have to be very careful with pests. The most common pests in hydrangea are the white mite and red mite, which are very small insects. You need a magnifying glass to see them, and what they do is that they suck the sap. Then the buds of the bushes are wrinkled and deformed, and the plant looks very ugly. So you always have to be very attentive to the mites. They have the particularity that they do not fly, so they do not disperse very quickly. They stay in foci, but they do very dramatic damage. So they do not spread all over the lot, but they do very strong damage, and you have to be always very attentive to them, as they are insects that have very short life cycles. They become resistant very easily to the products I had made, so you have to be very judicious with a rotation of the different strategies you do. So you have to integrate biological strategies, chemical strategies, and management. Strategies such as weed management or pruning. Remove the branches that have mite samples and take them away. That is the main pest problem. There are also the thrips that also form the flower, the aphids, and at the level of diseases there is a fungus that is very common. I imagine that many of us have seen it on the bushes in the garden that they call ash, which forms on the underside of the leaf like a gray, cottony gray on white citrus. And it is a fungus that is very difficult to control. It is a fungus that spreads very fast, so you have to be very careful with it, because in a few hours it colonizes the whole crop and damages the quality of the leaf and reduces the flour that you can sell. Sulfur-based fungicides and those of the triacyl group are also very good for seed management. In hydrangea we are subject to the international market, to what happens in the United States and in Europe. So the strongest times for flower sales are Valentine's Day, which is in February, Mother's Day, which is in May, and Thanksgiving, which is in November. Those are the strongest times for flower sales. Then the crops are programmed so that at those times there is more quantity of flowers. As the cycle between scything and cutting flowers lasts approximately 8 months, then you have to be, for example, for Mother's Day, you have to be in October bathing the lots that you want to be harvesting for those times and thus have a production that guarantees you the income you are expecting. It is an art crop, so it is a simple crop that has the advantage that the price goes hand in hand with the price of the dollars. So it has a very stable price throughout the year that allows you to calculate the profits and what you are going to invest. And it is a crop that has a lot of technical support needs like all crops. It is a crop that needs a permit from the ICA to regulate this type of activity, but the encouragement is that it is something that improves and that will allow you to learn and improve your crop, and that it is easy to grow. The plant is a very rustic plant, and the invitation to encourage you to try the cultivation of hydrangea.
Nuestra tierra, nuestro agro.